Hey everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review, and today we're taking a look at the new Robocop 3.75 inch Robocop 3.0 figure from Jada Toys. Yesterday we took a look at the Jada Toys new 6-inch version of this figure, and so today we're going to take a look at the 3 1/4 inch scale, which, as I mentioned yesterday in that 6-inch review, that I actually kind of prefer their 3 1/4 inch scale figures over the 6-inch ones. The packaging for this figure is basically identical to the figure to what we saw with the 6-inch figures. You've got the black and red highlights. You've got the picture of the Robocop character on the side. You've got the bilingual card, the Robocop logo at the top, and then the name of the figure at the bottom. This is the Robocop 3.0, which is the all-black version in the new Robocop movie coming out soon. On the back, again, we see figures that are being released in the line, the 1.0 and the 3.0. Up at the top, there's a brief bio for the movie, kind of Robocop bio type deal in multiple languages, and then down below we see the other figures being released by Jada Toys for their Robocop line. Okay, so let's get the figure open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so here's a look at the figure outside of the packaging. Now, right off, I should point out, I call this a 3.75 inch line, but I guess technically this is actually more of a 4-inch line. In fact, the figure stands just a hair over 4 inches tall. So I guess, as I said, this better classification is that this is a 4-inch line, not 3 1/4 inch. Detailing on this figure, very similar to what we saw with the 6-inch figure as far as sculpting goes on the armor. In fact, I kind of like it a little bit better on this 3 1/4 or this 4-inch figure because, well, for one, the flesh tones are, the sculpting on the flesh tone parts of the figure are a little better. You can actually see that this figure has a mouth. Still not a whole lot of detail with the flesh tones, no shading or anything like that, but at least you can make out an actual mouth on this figure, as opposed to the 6-inch one had no mouth at all. The red highlights on the eye stand out more on this figure than on the 6-inch, but that's because on the 6-inch one it had the light up feature on the eyes, whereas the red is just painted on. He's got some red dots on his chest, which I don't think you saw on the 6-inch figure, but otherwise the sculpting is pretty much the same. And you also have like the shinier paint on the helmet, on the front of the helmet, whereas you have the duller paint on the back. And on the back side, you have parts where it's duller and then shinier to kind of give it a little more added dimension, just like with the 6-inch figure. Like with the 6-inch figure, this figure comes with basically the same accessories. Comes with his pistol, which again pretty much has the same kind of sculpting detail that we saw in the 6-inch version. The little red mark and the black and silver. And then he comes with a rifle, or rifle type pistol. Again, same basically paint job. You even have, which I forgot to mention on the 6-inch version, but you have the OCP Corporation sculpted on the weapon. So you have that both on both the 4-inch scale and the 6-inch scale. Now, neither the 6-inch figure or this 4-inch figure, neither one has peg holes on the feet. Now here's the figure, the 4-inch figure next to a Marvel Universe figure from Hasbro. You can see they're pretty close in scale, a lot better in scale with other 4 or 3 1/4 inch line figures than the 6-inch figures. As I mentioned in the 6-inch figure review, I felt that even though they seem to classify that line as a 6-inch line, I feel it's better classified as a 5-inch scale. Those 6-inch figures are really a little too small, in my opinion, to be in a true 6-inch scale. but the 4-inch figures do fit in well with other 4-inch lines like the Marvel Universe, G.I. Joe. Here he is next to Battle Android figure from the G.I. Joe line. You can see that they have pretty good size, about the same size and everything. So they'll fit in. This figure will fit in nicely with your other 4-inch lines, which I like. Articulation on this figure is pretty much the same points of articulation that we saw on the 6-inch figure. However, I do think it works a little bit better on this 4-inch figure. The head, again, now it has better movement to the left and right. You can actually move it all the way around if you wanted to. Again, that's probably because it doesn't have the light up feature in the head. It does not, however, have any up or down movement really, so you still don't really get any up or down movement, but you do get more movement to the left and right with this smaller scale figure than you did with the 6-inch scale. Shoulders are again ball hinge joints, but again you get more movement. You can get it out more, the arm out more, because the armor pieces on this figure are not hindering the movement of the joint, so that's nice. Still have the single hinged elbow, still can only kind of bend the elbow about halfway. Still no swivel at the wrist or any kind of articulation at the wrist. Same for the midsection, no midsection articulation. Legs, again, basically exactly the same, ball hinge joints, and again, like with the 6-inch figure, the movement, you can't get the legs to move out very much because of the way the armor pieces are sculpted. So that's pretty much exactly the same as on the 6-inch figure. And you can't really bend the figure back very much either. Tends to go outwards more than back. Single hinged knees, and really can only get kind of a partial bend on the knees. Again, just like with the 6-inch figure, and no ankle articulation at all. So still, just like with the 6-inch figure, we're looking at pretty basic articulation, but you do get at least a little bit more movement in the head and the arms than you did on the 6-inch version. So that's another reason why I kind of like the 4-inch figures a little bit better than the 6-inch ones in this line. So that about does it for my review. Again, just like I said with the 6-inch line, I think this line is really made more with kids in mind, not adult collectors. But I do think that they do a better job with their 4-inch or 3 1/4 inch line than they did with the 6-inch line. I think it fits in better with other 4-inch lines. A couple extra added points of articulation would be nice, but Robocop again isn't really the most agile character in the world, so the fact that he has limited articulation is kind of in keeping with the actual character, I think. And I think the detail, the fact that he has a mouth, the fact that he is more in scale with other 4-inch lines, the fact that he has a little bit more mobility over the 6-inch counterpart, I think it makes the 4-inch line nicer. Plus, as far as I know of, Jada Toys is the only one doing the smaller scale figures for the new Robocop movie. So this is really kind of our first time in modern action figure collecting. Back in the day, I think there were smaller scale Robocop lines, but this is, I think, I won't swear to that, but right now there's no other company doing a smaller scale Robocop line for either the vintage line or the new line. It would be great if we got some other in-scale characters like Ed 209 or something to go along with the Robocop figures. That would be great if Jada Toys was able to do more characters other than just Robocop for this line. I think that would definitely make the line more appealing to kids and collectors alike. So that's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, I'll catch you later.